Mhm. So this is a huge concern of mine, and this is I often when I talk to people about this, and I've talked about my experience, I go like, look, you can't let me do this. If we do this, and you're just gonna make me a bitch. Like I've worked so hard, and I haven't even worked hard because I don't need to be a bitch because I'm not a bitch.
Yeah.
Like
I just am tough.
I'm just tough, and like I'm sorry that other people had problems with these things, and everybody has hardships, and so I get it. Like I feel this way. So what I will try to do is tell you what has been told to me that I am. This is another thing to change your belief. I'm trying this idea on. Like it doesn't totally fit, but I'm trying this new perspective on, which is everything you said actually isn't. So for trauma to be subjective does not mean that we need to suggest or reinforce trauma in other people. It means that we allow them and we create a scenario in which they are heard and experienced. And but also, like, you know, if they say that if they can honestly say, look, this didn't have this kind of an impact on me, no therapist in the world would insist that you always elect to come to therapy. There's not this court ordered thing unless you've committed a crime.
Yeah, I don't think you ever want to say, oh, you should be traumatized by that.
No. But what has been suggested to me that I think is often useful is that, look, let's start with the premise, which you may or may not agree with, that our society is in its infant stages when it's understanding human psychology and what drives people. And let's assume, for the sake of this conversation, that as a result of that, the water in which you exist has completely minimized some of the hard things in human life. And it's been doing that for 100,000 years. You know, it's not a new thing, such that it keeps you alive. It keeps you feeding yourself. It keeps you a functioning member of society, but it also keeps you highly anxious, which wasn't a problem for the last 10,000 years because you needed food. But now we're at a new era where, in addition to being well-fed, functioning member of society, you could also be deeply happy and at peace. Given that, it is possible that the names that you were called when you were little created patterns of thinking and behavior that live in you today. And in the same way, for instance, like the example that I always use is, think of the accent that you have. I haven't relearned English ever, yet I speak, and my sister even more so, like I'm from Philadelphia. I moved out of Philadelphia 13 or 15 years ago, but I haven't shook my accent because I grew up in that. So think, how does that, you have an accent when it comes to how you are intimate with other people, with what success means to you, with what you do when someone is cruel to you. And those things were put into this tiny little brain as fixed quantities when you were very little. And if you want to adjust the accent on those, or even come to realize that it's not a fundamental truth of the universe that everybody speaks with a Philadelphia accent or has issues with intimacy, is really, really tough, driven like Elon Musk, whatever, gets angry very quickly, that it's possible that those were formed by over generalized beliefs that are completely understandable that a child would make when called a name or ignored by his parents or sexually assaulted or beaten to a pulp. And it doesn't need to be big for you to make a generalized belief about what life means. And that's the other thing, is that trauma doesn't have to have necessarily a negative connotation. I guess what I'm suggesting is that it can form limiting patterns of thinking and behavior later in your life. And it could have just been like, you won an award. And then
this is what I was going to say. I think that the idea that it's something happens to you versus is trauma is how much it impacts you today, right? And everybody's going to be impacted to different degrees. So one person could be bullied all the time, and it could turn into good fuel, or it could be something that didn't bother them as much as one person who was bullied one time, but it really stuck with them. So it's not like any of these things are objectively more or less traumatizing. It's that every person's psyche is different. Every person's home is different. You know, maybe someone that gets bullied less but goes to a loveless house is going to end up much more traumatized than someone who was brutally bullied in school but had an amazing home life, you know? But it's not so much about having a judgment on anything being a certain way. It's just recognizing for yourself, maybe there's things in your life that aren't good, that would be good if you went back and found the root cause for why you have that habit or why you react that way. That's kind of how I think of it.
Yes. And it, I don't know what the therapist would say, but Take a great example that you were praised. I told the story last week of how I punched an 8-year-old, knocked him down.
At age 6.
At age 6.
Very important detail.
I was 6. He was picking on my sister. I gave him a bloody nose. And I was praised like, wow, you did protect it. And it wasn't trauma, but it instilled this idea in me that, wow, this is amazing. To protect your family is fucking awesome. But also, whenever anything is awesome, whenever receiving an award is awesome, there's a flip side to everything. So if I get love for something, I don't get love for not that.
Like failing is to
exactly.
be a protector.
So failing to be a protector, failing to get the award, whatever. And it doesn't have to be traumatic to create patterns of behavior that just make you miserable today without you even recognizing that that's driving you. So yeah, if you don't want to call it trauma, I'm not attached to the word. But
some stuff happened from age 0 to 10 that stuck with you and affects you in a way such that you're not potentially having the best behaviors or mindset, and you could, by addressing them or doing certain things, just be happier.
Exactly. Hope that you guys enjoyed that clip. If you want to see more like this and have us do more podcasts, we are 100% funded by our generous patrons. And if you'd like to contribute, there's a link in the description, and we'll have one pop up on the screen right here so that we can do more podcasts where we have fun conversations and hopefully some deep ones like this. Either way, hope that you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.